Okay, so what are you saying, people, and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. So today, guys, like always, another weekly analysis for you. On the screen and the pairs we'll be analyzing today, but make sure you do stay to the end of the video as there is a bonus pair in store. We'll quickly go through my trade, which I've got currently running on NZD. We'll break that down and then take a look at the pairs which we'll analyze. If there is a particular pair you do want to skip ahead to, feel free to do so using the timestamps below. But I had no new positions this week, but I was holding on to a Aussie CHF position from last week, which finally we're starting to see some nice momentum from. Last time we had a look at this one was on last week's analysis. I believe we were kind of trading around entry. Price had a very kind of corrective pullback this week, but just before the week closed, we did see some nice momentum to the downside. Again, essentially price is holding on to my confidence coming into this trend line area, also respecting that prior high, which created a new high, which price respected, nice double top over there. I'm looking for the continuation of the overall trend here for Aussie CHF. We've been bearish for quite a while. I'm expecting more of the same. We had a really impressive push there in July. I'm kind of looking at the continuation of that back into this area. Longer term targets, I will look to hold some positions to run back to the low here if everything goes well. But first things first, we do need to get to that low there. That is my kind of primary target for the trade. Not much to report, and to be honest, I've kind of taken the trade last week Wednesday, I believe it was Wednesday, yeah, last week Wednesday, and I'm very much just letting the market do its thing. I've got my stop loss in place, targets in place, and yeah, there's no active management needed on this trade. Just letting the market do its thing. Like I said, seeing some nice momentum. As long as you can respect that confidence, I do expect to see a continuation back to the low. So we'll see how that goes next week. In terms of the dollar, I'm pretty bearish on this one still. We did see some nice downside this week, a really nice move over here, nice continuation. Not as big of a pullback as I was expecting, and I'm still looking for that bigger pullback. We had a very kind of minor correction this week, and price just kind of dumped to the downside. Momentum looks good. It's just not really much of an opportunity for the bigger pullback, at least on the time frames I'm looking for. This is still really my area of confidence, so I do really want to see that bigger pullback happen next week. Then again, looking for continuation, perhaps back into the low. I think keep it simple. If we do see that pullback next week, my targets for the DXY anyway would be back to the low wherever we pull back from. So let's say if we do pull back from this point, then 106.328 would be the target for the trade. Overall, dollar, again, still very much in a bullish market. We haven't broken through any major bullish structure just yet, but of course at this moment in time we do have some pretty developed bearish structure with some lower lows and lower highs. So the plan is looking for the next lower high, coming back into a nice area of supply, really nice strong drop, looking for the retest of that area, perhaps maybe the retest of the trend line, but I think it's a bit out of reach right now. That's really where I have my interest for the dollar. Pull back into that area and then some more downside. So pretty bearish on USD. However, I do expect some strength for the pullback, so there might be some counter opportunities on the lower time frames, but I'm just more interested with the sells. In terms of euro, pretty much expecting the opposite as well. We've got a nice area down here which I like the retest of, coming back to test this zone at 1.03 along with the trend line and this brief area where we did see that push to the upside. This is of course the higher low which gave us where's the high? There we go. This is the high low which gave us this push to the upside, creating new highs past this point. So I'm looking at the continuation of this bullish structure, but I want to see a much deeper pullback into the zone. I say that because we failed to break the highs this week. We had a nice push to the upside on Thursday there, but we failed to break the highs. So that's a sign that, okay, sellers are doing a pretty good job at resistance here. So I don't want to be buying too close to this zone. This is where the sellers are located. Sure, there potentially could be a breakout, but I don't want to be the person to find that out with a trade. If I'm going to take a buy, it's because prices come back to bullish territory, which is generally around this area here, where I can get a safer stop loss and of course maximize my risk to reward as well should the trade play out. This is kind of where my focus will lie next week for Euro USD, a pullback closer towards 1.033, stop loss below the zone. Entries in that area, and then targets back into resistance, which is this high here at 1.05, and also potentially if we go further 1.06 up there as well. One thing to note about Euro USD is that we are forming this kind of rounded shape, rounded bottom, which is a very strong sign of reversal. We've gone from a very nice bearish trend, a lot of momentum, but things are slowing down, and we've gone from making lower lows to now higher lows and gradually turning around very correctively as well to note. So I do expect to see Euro USD eventually push the upside, take up these highs and these highs, but for now just looking for a pullback. This is the area of interest. and hopefully we can take some buys next week. So yeah, that's the plan for Euro USD going into next week. Okay, so now onto USD JPY. So very bearish on this pair, looking for a lot more downside. A very impressive move this week. We've got the continuation of that bearish leg from last week, and it looks like price is about to take out these lows, which are very important lows, especially when I go to the daily chart and you can see this is a swing low, which gave us a new swing high up there at 158, 159. So a break of that low would be a break of structure, a break of this bullish structure here from the low to the high, to the low to the high. So that structure will be invalidated, and that means from a daily perspective, we expect a lot more downside as well. Lower time frames, I'm already looking at sells based on the 4-hour structure, but daily structure looks like it's about to give way. The odds of us suddenly finding support and pushing to the upside look pretty slim, especially looking at what the other yen pairs are doing, looking at the yen basket as well. I do expect us to rate to the downside, and longer term targets for dollar yen are back at these lows here at 140.8, 140 we'll call it. So I do expect a lot more downside for dollar yen. In terms of opportunities next week, I'm looking to see if we can go and take out those daily lows. And then look for a pullback and perhaps a retest of the trend line again, look for the next lower high. Nice consolidation here, strong drops to the downside. This will be a very, very nice setup if it does form. Of course, will we pull back that much? Will we come back to retest the zone? All those questions I don't know the answer to. All I can say is that this looks like a really nice setup should it form. My job is not to trade everything, it's just to find good setups, and when they arise, make sure I'm there to take the trade. And that's exactly what we have here with dollar yen. So if you can get a pullback back into 151.5, that's the setup I'll be interested in. Really nice trend line, multiple rejections, and really nice momentum in the bearish legs as well. So the probability of continuation of this bearish structure is pretty high. So yeah, looking for the pullback. Again, in terms of targets, you can be looking for the bigger push, but I think keep it relatively simple, especially when the target is so down. It's like 1,000 pip move. I don't think most of us will be looking for a trade that big. Let's say if we form a low here, again, very hypothetical, but wherever we form that low for the pullback would of course make for a nice target. You can always leave some positions to run if you want to, but that's kind of the trade idea for next week. So very bearish on dollar yen. Keep an eye on 152. Nice confluence in that area. Looking for bearish continuation next week. Okay, so next up we've got dollar CAD. So dollar CAD very bearish on this one as well. Haven't really seen much movement in the past week or so. So the setup I discussed last week is pretty much still the same thing. Looking for the retest of this consolidation for a lot more downside. The idea of dollar CAD is that we are expecting that this is the top of the bullish move we've seen over the past few months. Really strong move to the upside, as we can all see, but we've come back into a very significant level on the weekly chart. As you can see, if we zoom out, massive resistance once, twice, and now a third time. Well, we're expecting to act a third time, and so far is doing so. There's a really big level of resistance, which will be turned support just underneath where price is currently, and looking for the retest of that zone. So dropping back to the 4-hour chart, you can see we had that consolidation. Price manipulated that to the upside, big kind of gap a couple of weeks ago. We came crashing back down, and with all that momentum, we've broken in the opposite direction. So kind of a typical fake out. Price fakes to go one way to move the opposite, and that's exactly what's happened here with dollar CAD. So looking at the retest of the consolidation, this is where we kind of spent a few days before seeing a nice drop to the downside. So we know a lot of momentum's come from that area, and there's a good possibility that we could see some new sellers step into the market and take price to the downside. And targets, I'm looking at 1.4. Of course, if you want to be less aggressive, you can target the lows here. Let's say if we pull back from this area, that could be a nice place for a target as well. It will be a nice place for a target. And if you want to stretch trade a little bit further, there are some weekly levels below us, which I do think there's a good chance for us getting to. I mean, put things into perspective. Last time we rejected this level, look at the massive rejection we've seen from that level. So looking for a push back into there is not really asking too much from the market, and I think it's pretty good probability of it happening. But a push back into the low is a good opportunity as well. But that's the take on dollar CAD. Very bearish on this one. As you see with my dollar analysis, I'm very bearish on the USD in general, and dollar CAD's price action is pointing the same way. So very bearish on dollar CAD, looking for pullbacks into the 1.43 area and shorts back into 1.4 for next week. Okay, so next up we've got Euro Pound. So Euro Pound, I am still bearish on this one. We broke the lows this week, lovely move to the downside. And it looks like price is probably going to have a push back into the lows here. I've been talking a lot about the monthly zone, about possibly price bouncing on that level. And we've had a nice bounce, but it hasn't really lasted and it hasn't really amounted to much as well. We're still in that monthly zone where things can turn very quickly. But looking at the lower time frames, weekly charts still very much in a comfortable bearish trend. As you can see, connecting all the lower highs, the market's been very consistent with that. And dropping to the daily chart, we're seeing more of that happen. Of course, with the 4-hour chart, we've just broken through some new lows as well. Last week, I spoke about perhaps another retest of the high. Unfortunately, didn't quite have enough energy to go and do that. That would be a nice place for entries and a nice place to put a stop loss above, but the market was just far too bearish. And we broke to the downside this week, and I'm looking for us to come back into these lows now. So it's kind of like a big head and shoulder pattern. It's probably not the most orthodox one you'll ever see, but it kind of fits the picture. Really big push to the upside, really big push back down. All that momentum didn't really amount to much. Now I'm expecting the trend just to continue back into the lows. So that's my thinking with Euro Pound. In terms of opportunities to trade it, nice consolidation here where we saw a lot of momentum to the downside. So again, there's a good chance we could see some more sellers step into the market should we come back to revisit that area. And that would be a nice place to be looking for entries and some follow through back into the prior low at 0.8225. So that's the expectation there next week for Euro Pound. Still very bearish on this one, looking for this momentum to continue, at least back into support, and we'll see what happens from there. Maybe a huge double bottom forms and we turn around. We can judge that in the coming days, but for now, Euro Pound still showing a lot of momentum, still giving us lower lows and lower highs. So very much looking for the continuation of that next week and a push back down to 0.8225. So that's the analysis and the plan for next week. Okay, so next up we got Aussie dollar. So Aussie dollar, I'm very bullish on this one, looking for a lot more upside. I was speaking about the retest of the consolidation this week. Again, didn't quite see that. We had another consolidation and price broke to the upside. I'm still looking for that retest to see if it can happen. Again, we're coming back from a really nice level on the weekly chart. So as we can see, major support on the left. Price looks like it's having a pretty good job at bouncing on that level at the moment. As I drop back to the 4-hour chart, you can see really aggressive double bottom there, and we've broken structure since then. So the plan and the expectation is a lot more upside for Aussie dollar. I'm still pretty bearish on the USD, so my expectation is more upside for Aussie dollar. And this is still, excuse me, this is still a really nice area of consolidation, where again we saw a lot of momentum on the breakout. So should we come back to revisit, a good chance we'll see price bounce from there. I did talk briefly about the retest of this consolidation. Still could potentially see the price react from this area and continue early next week, so keep an eye on that. I'm still looking for the bigger pullback into this zone, again looking for entries in that area and targets at least back to the high, although I will start to look for some of areas on the left here, as prior highs could become really nice targets or extended targets where you can look to hold some positions to carry on if you're looking for some bigger continuations. But that is still very much the plan there for Aussie dollar. Looking at this again being a bit of a bottom for Aussie dollar, and now expecting a bit of a bullish trend to form. So still very bullish, looking for a retest around 0.63 for entries, targets back to the high at 0.64, but I do expect to see higher prices. So yeah, that's the plan next week for Aussie dollar. Okay, so now on to New Zealand CAD. New Zealand CAD, not been a big fan of this, of the price action recently. I've been very bearish on this one, consistent lower lows and lower highs as we can see. So I've been expecting a lot more downside for the pair, and we have seen most of that happen. But I've been looking for price to get back to support down here on the daily chart. Haven't made that a reality just yet, and it looks like we are breaking outside of this trend line and potentially forming a bit of a bottom to push to the upside. If that's the case, then I'm waiting for a much stronger break of this channel and a break of the highs here. Then we can be looking for some pullbacks and some upside opportunities, some retests of the highs, taking it back into the previous swing high, which is back at 0.83. So that could be a nice opportunity on probably the hourly chart, just to keep the risk reward respectable. On the 4-hour chart, might not find the best entry for that one, but that could be a nice opportunity that does present maybe in the next few days if this is a bit of a bottom and we are pushing to the upside. And I say that because if we were going to continue back to the lows, I would expect a lot more momentum by now, and price to have picked up the pace and hit the lows. The fact that we've struggled at the lows here so much and we haven't continued back to these lows here is a bit of a red flag, and looks like price is of course breaking through the trend line as well. So if we are going to be bullish, let's wait for price to really show that to us with a strong break of the trend line and breaking through the highs. Then I would say categorically the market is now bullish, because at that point we've got some higher highs and higher lows, and we can be looking for the retest of structure for continuation back to the high. And at the moment, that's probably the best setup I can find with New Zealand CAD. Shorts don't really look good. We're very tired, very sluggish at the lows. So hopefully when we do break to the upside, we find some new strong bullish momentum, which we can look for pullbacks of and follow. So yeah, the buys possibly could be a really nice setup, but there's some waiting to do before that does set up. So that's the plan next week for New Zealand CAD. Keep an eye on the break and retest of the high here at 0.822 for a push back into 0.83. Okay, so over to pound NZD. So pound NZD is a bit in a sticky situation, stuck between resistance and support, and it's kind of just waiting to make its move. And I'm waiting for it to make its move before I do kind of come out with a concrete bias of my expectations. If the market trend is just going to continue, which is still pretty bullish, if I go to the daily chart, you can see overall the market's been very, very consistent with all these higher lows. If that's going to continue, then the chances of price pushing back to the high here, 2.23, is pretty high. And a nice setup to trade that opportunity would be waiting for price to break resistance here, because once we do that, there's probably a good chance that we are coming back to retest resistance. So break and retest, pullbacks afterwards will look like a really nice opportunity to catch that break and retest and ride it back to the high. So that would be a nice trade idea, perhaps a bit more intraday, probably looking at hourly chart for entries. But in terms of probability of price hitting that level, that high, would be of a good probability if we do see price break that resistance at 2.22. However, if price does break the floor, which is this low here, because this is kind of where we're stuck between resistance and support, we've also got this trend line running through the market, connecting these higher lows. Should we see the break of that, so the break of support plus the break of the trend line, that could be a bit of a sign that says, okay, maybe pound NZD is looking for a bit of a trend in the opposite direction, and we could be seeing some nice shorting opportunities on the back of that. And I would be looking for the break and retest of this of that level there at 2.186. So we've got the break of support, we've got the break of the trend line, and overall pound Aussie on the higher time frames is generally speaking at an area, actually go to the weekly chart, is actually at an area where I do expect us to turn around. We've taken out some major highs. This was the wick from COVID, and I do expect to see eventually another lower high form in comparison to the previous high, and we're in an area where that could be a reality. So there is potentially a lot of room to the downside for pound NZD. Of course, I'm not looking for a massive drop like that in one go, but it's nice to know that, okay, potentially we could be in that direction and we could see a lot of momentum, and we could take advantage of that. So really for pound NZD, I'm waiting for a clear breakout, whether to the upside or to the downside. There's opportunities in both direction, but what I don't want to do is trade inside here, because this is where the most noise is, most consolidation, and I won't be able to get a good read or a good stop loss in the market as well. So I'm waiting for price to break the high of 2.22 or break the low of 2.18, and then I'll look for opportunities respective to which way we break out. But that will be the plan next week for pound NZD. Okay, so next up we've got CAD Yen. So CAD Yen I'm very bearish on, expecting a lot more downside for this pair. Long term, this is my target, the wick low. Again, looking for the continuation of that drop last year, July. Big move. And I'm looking at this as just a prolonged correction, a pause for the market before we see the continuation of that momentum. So I'm still very bearish, looking at this as a big head and shoulder pattern as well. Left head, right shoulder. That's your neckline, if you will. And I'm expecting that to break as well. So very bearish with CAD Yen, as I am with pretty much all the yen pairs. Bullish on the yen itself, and looking for opportunities in that direction. Looks like price is breaking through this floor right now. Looks like the yen basket is about to break resistance as well. So opportunities on the retest of that will look really good, especially intraday as well. Just looking to continue that momentum to the downside. If price does start to hold this level of support, we start to push up again, I'm not really interested in that as an opportunity. All the higher time frames point down, and momentum is down as well. We're putting some really nice lower lows and lower highs, so we're seeing some bearish structure on the 4-hour chart as well. And of course, with the last drop there, we've seen some nice momentum there too. So everything is pointing down. Don't really want to be interested with the buys. Even if we do start to reject the support well, I'm just waiting for it to break to look for retests on the underside and then targets. Again, it can be back at the wick low. It can be wherever we create the new low. Say if we break to the downside, create a new low here for the retest. Again, back to the prior low is always a healthy target. And if you're looking to push the trade a little bit further, I do expect us to go and take out that wick there on the daily chart pretty soonish as well. If we do have a deeper pullback, I will contemplate some areas around here, but I need to wait to see how everything develops and how we shape up first. Maybe I might talk about the opportunity maybe next week. But for now, a lot of momentum in the market, looking for the breaking test of 105.236 and longer term targets back at 101.5. And that will be the plan next week for CAD Yen. Okay, so over to pound USD, so very bullish on this one. Nice upside this week. Market has been pretty consistent with these high lows, 1, 2, 3. In fact, I can extend this trend line to connect it to the prior lows over there and have all 3 points testing, 1, 2, 3. And that's really where my focus will be at 1.25. Not only does it line up the trend line pretty well, but lines up with a very powerful level of support, as you can see once, twice, and also resistance not too long ago. So that does tell me that price has paid a lot of attention to that level, and there's a good chance if we do get there, see some healthy rejections, bullish engulfing candles, there's a good chance we could bounce to see more upside. I'm looking for a pushback to retest that high there at 1.279. And also taking into consideration where we're coming from on the daily chart, coming from a really strong low. This push, this low here gave us a strong push to the upside, creating new highs past this point. So this is a very important low. It's a structural low. If price was to break through that, that would mean a lot more downside, but we didn't. We respected it just about there, and now price is pushing to the upside with some nice bullish structure. So I'm expecting more upside for pound USD. Again, very bearish on the DXY as well, so it does add up. I'm looking for initially some strength on the dollar for a bit of a pullback, but the bigger move I'm looking at is still dollar weakness. So hopefully you can see a nice pullback there for pound, come back into 1.25, looking for entries. Again, keeping it simple, back to the high looks good. If you're looking to stretch trade a little bit further, you've got 1.279 up there. But yeah, very, very bullish on pound. Let's just wait for the pullback, see if it happens or it doesn't. But that's where my focus is, and that's where I want to find my entries. So that's the plan next week for pound USD. Okay, so over to pound CAD. So pound CAD, not a big fan of this pair. If I go to the daily chart, you can see pretty much it's just moving sideways. Or equal highs up there, equal lows down here, and the market is just bouncing between. So I'm not interested in this market until we do see price either come back to retest the highs, retest the lows, or break out. If we do break to the upside, I like the idea of continuations, break and retest. Or if you do break to the downside, I like the idea of a reversal potentially, because of course we've been trending to the upside for a while. Breaking through those lows would indicate to me that price is likely to reverse. So I like the opportunities if we break out. Also, if you do retest the highs, there could be some nice short opportunities back at those levels. Seen price respect the high numerous times, once, twice, a third time, fourth in general there, fifth as well. So it has been a very sturdy level of resistance, and should price get there again and we see some more rejection, there's a good chance price is going to turn around. And again, I like the idea of trading back to the 50 of this zone. So if I whip out the fib, mark it from the low to the high, mark the 50 on, that could be a really nice target. For example, if you did short from the previous rejection up here, you know, you would be a little bit in a tight situation if you had targets all the way back at the low here, as price did form a higher low and start to push back up against you. If you look to secure profits at the 50, which is a very high probability for price to make that move, you could secure some gains, and if price does come back against you, you walk away for profit. If it does go to your target, you can still hold positions to run. Yeah, with pound CAD, I like the shorts at the high. I like the breakout opportunities, but of course I won't really speak too much about that until we get a lot closer to that opportunity, because that could still take a few days. But for now, pound CAD, if you're really looking to trade it, I'll focus at the highs, because that's where we can get safe stop loss and maximize the risk reward. Again, I'll look to target that 50% of the range, because I know there's a good possibility price gets there, and we can always leave some positions to run to the other end of the range. So if you're shorting back to the low, if you're buying back to the high, of course. But that's the only way I look to see to trade pound CAD, because of its nature. It's just moving sideways. The best way to trade it is sell high and buy low. So that's the plan next week for pound CAD. Okay, so over to pound yen. So looking for a lot more downside, very bearish on this one. Again, the expectation is similar to the analysis with CAD yen. Looking for a push back into the swing low here at 180. Really big drop there in July. Again, looking at this as a correction of that formal downside. So I'm expecting a lot more momentum for the JPY pairs in general, and pound yen included. In terms of opportunities, again, waiting for price to break the low and look for some pullbacks and retests of that zone. Looks like a really nice opportunity. Looks like I missed the pullback opportunity at the high here. I was looking for price to come back and retest it before shorting. Didn't get that that setup, unfortunately, and price kind of just slowly spilled over this week. There probably would have been some nice opportunities in the lower time frames to try and catch those lower highs, but of course my focus is mainly on the 4-hour chart. So in terms of the 4-hour chart, the next best opportunity I see would be waiting for the break of that low and looking for the continuation. JPY basket is also reaching a very critical level of resistance. If that does break, there should be some nice break and retest there, and of course that should be mimicked here on pound yen as well. So 187 really is an area of interest for me, and I do expect a lot more downside. Again, in terms of targets, wherever we create that hypothetical low before the pullback, so if it's created there, that would be a nice target to have. Of course, we've got the daily wick low we can target as well, but that I would expect to take a little bit longer, and of course it depends what you're looking for, but I do expect us to get there eventually. But yeah, pound yen still very bearish, consistent lower lows and lower highs. I would like the momentum to pick up a little bit. We are still quite corrective, but it looks like we are seeing signs of momentum picking up the pace a bit, so that will be a really nice sign for us sellers. But yeah, waiting for the break of the support level and then looking for retest, and the plan will be to short it back to 180 eventually. But yeah, we'll be looking to catch the retest next week. Okay, so over to gold. So gold's still very bullish on this one. However, we're trapped in an area where we are starting to have a bit of a pause, starting to develop a bit of a consolidation. Is this a consolidation for price to reverse potentially and give us a bit of a counter trend? Or are we just pausing for price to continue to the upside? We don't know. I'm waiting for price to break out and give me a good indication as to which way price wants to go and what the scenario is. If we do break the high here at 29.40 and do it with big candlesticks, a lot of momentum, then that just sets the tone in terms of, okay, I'm expecting a lot more upside. We're very much in the bullish trend, and the buyers are still back in control. So retest of this area will look really good, and I have marked 3K as a nice psychological level. I do think price is looking to work towards that area and go and test. It's a big psychological level, so I do think price is going to hit it pretty soon. If we do just respect the high, we could very much push back down again, back into support, and continue to consolidate between resistance and support, which is around 29.40 and 28.80. I'm not really interested in price in between those two levels. I'm looking for momentum and I'm looking for breaks, because that will indicate that, okay, the sellers are in control, the buyers are in control. Then it will be my job to be looking for pullbacks and continuations of those moves. The market is still pretty extended for gold right now. We've been trending to the upside for a while. We were left behind some really big structures here without really coming back to retest it. So if you do break to the downside, I do like the idea of some possible short-term selling opportunities for some long-term buys. But of course, you have to stay patient. That doesn't really look like it's in the cards at the moment in time. But if gold is still going to be bullish and we're still going to push to the upside, then let's start breaking through the highs again, show that the buyers are very much in control. At the moment, we've had a few attempts to try and break the high, hasn't been successful. So a bit of a question mark there for gold. But should we do that, which we could easily do early next week, looking for the break and retest and seeing if we can take it back to 3K. And that will be the plan next week for gold. Okay, so over to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin hasn't really done much since we last spoke, and it hasn't done much since the past month, I would say. We've been pretty much in the same position. I'm looking for either retest of the low of the range or for price to break out. I'm looking for retest above the high at 108K. Again, the analysis for Bitcoin is that I'm still very bullish, still a lot of momentum in the market. Yes, we're in a bit of a pause right now, but we've done this multiple times where price has a big move, it pauses, another big move normally follows. And even if we do break to the downside for Bitcoin, I'll still be looking for retests of this range here around 72K for upside from that area. I would just be expecting that that bearish breakout to be a pullback for more upside to follow. So I'm very bullish on Bitcoin, at least in terms of the price action. In terms of the opportunity, as I said, looking for buys down low, or if we do break to the upside, looking to pull back that momentum and expecting price to continue to the upside. Especially with Bitcoin, we can break out, we can really let fly as well. So the break and retest is an opportunity where we might only see a quick break and retest, but the market could be very, very explosive. So definitely something to keep a close eye on. But otherwise, I don't really see much to do with Bitcoin. It's just very, very flat right now. I would very much avoid trading inside of this noise. That's where a lot of people are going to be losing a lot of money, a lot of fluctuations. Just not a great place to enter a trade. At least at the lows here, you can find a nice place for a stop loss. Even if you do get wicked out, you can always find re-entries pretty quickly. And likewise to the upside there as well. You can put your stop loss at relatively safe places and capitalize on some nice ideas and nice breakouts as well. So very bullish overall for Bitcoin. Only really looking to buy, to be honest. Maybe if you do get the break of the range, I'll talk about some short-term sells for some buys later on, closer to 70k, but for now just looking to play the range or play the breakout whenever that will happen. At the moment, kind of just floating nowhere, so really kind of boring right now for Bitcoin, but opportunities haven't really changed much. And that's the analysis going into next week. Okay, so last but not least, we've got our bonus pair, which for this week is USD CHF. So looking for a lot more downside this pair, as I've been saying, very bearish on the DXY and very bearish on USD. I'm expecting us to see a lot more downside for dollar CHF. Based on where we're trading on the weekly chart, very strong weekly resistance. As you can see, massive rejection once, twice, and potentially a third time as well. So there could be a lot more downside just because of where we're trading here on the weekly chart. Overall, the market's been pretty bearish as well, and if we're going to maintain resistance, this could induce a pretty nice move to the downside. So from a higher time frame perspective, things are looking bearish. On the 4-hour chart, we've had a nice bullish trend, which looks like it's again hitting a bit of a top. We formed some nice equal highs here, nice double top, and price has since been putting in some nice lower highs, which, one thing to note, with really impressive bearish legs as well, a lot of momentum. So it's a sign that says, okay, now the bullish legs are becoming corrective and the bearish legs are coming impulsive. So it's a sign that things are changing. We're seeing more force with the sellers. At the moment, we're still trading at support, so the opportunity is not quite developed yet, but I'm looking for the break of this this level and then looking for the retest of the same level for continuations. We could go very, very far, but I think for next week, keep it relatively simple. Wherever we can break out to, again, very hypothetical, but let's say we break to the downside and we create a low around 0.885, that then will become a nice target to have on after the retest, and then short it back into the prior low. If we are going to sell off from that weekly level, of course, we could have a really big move, and it's up to you how you want to trade that. But in terms of realistic targets for a couple of days move, that looks like a reasonable target back into the low. Wherever it forms, it might be a bit higher, it might be a bit lower. We'll wait and see how next week unfolds. But I am looking for the break of support, especially if USD is going to be weak. If we do bounce at this level, start to find support and push back up again, I'm not really interested in shorting, because quite frankly, this is a bit of a range here for dollar CHF. Equal lows, equal highs. Price might want to push back into resistance again. So I'm not really interested with that. Price needs to break the low for me to really be interested here with dollar CHF. So the plan is break of the low, wait for the retest, and then short it back into the prior low, wherever that does form. And that is the analysis for dollar CHF and the analysis for next week. If you guys have found this video useful, please be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Make sure you do hit the bell so you don't miss out on any streams or uploads in the future. Comment down below any pairs you're looking to trade next week. I'm interested to find out. Make sure you do check out the Elevating Traders Discord channel. Whilst you're at it, link in the description. You can join the community, chat with other traders, find out more information about Elevating Traders, the prop firm itself, and of course I'm there as well, so you can chat to myself if you want to. But guys, really appreciate you tuning in. Have a great day, have a great weekend, and I'll catch you all in the new week.